Everybody wants it, everybody needs it, and everyone wants more of it. It's not oxygen or love, it's money. And today in this episode, we're going to be talking about pharmacists and their funny relationship with money. I have to admit, one of the appealing things about pharmacy that drew me in was finding out how much a pharmacist made. I thought, wow, that's a great salary and something that I could easily live off of for the rest of my life. Some people will admit that that's what drew them in as well. And others will admit, hey, you can work part-time as a pharmacist and still make a really good living. According to our Happy PharmD salary guide in 2018, the average pharmacist made $129,000 a year. That's a significant sum of money. Even if you live in California, that's a decent wage. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, they said that the average U.S. American household makes about $61,000 a year. And that's, if 2 people live in there or 4 people or 6. The average is $61,000. So roughly estimated, one pharmacist makes about twice the amount of the American household. But income is only one side of the story, right? There's the other side. What did we have to do in order to obtain that kind of income? Well, we had to pay for it, didn't we? Not just with time and effort, but money too. One of my good friends, Timothy Ulbrich from Your Financial Pharmacist, shared with me this graph, and it shows that from 2009 to 2017, the average income of the U.S. pharmacy salary has relatively stayed about the same. It's increased a little bit, but the debt load has significantly increased by comparison. And the thing about this is that this is the average, meaning half of the people are below that and half of the people are above it. But that the same is true for income as it is for debt. I regularly have a student messaging me or commenting on something say that they have about $250,000 in debt. Timothy Ulbrich also did an excellent paper about the return on investment in getting a PharmD degree. Now, it's very difficult to say what exactly is your return on investment when you just get a job. It's about what you do with that job. It's about the trajectory. It's about where you put that income. But one of the things that he concluded in his paper was, quote, regardless of loan payment strategy, net incomes for pharmacists graduating from public and private institutions were less in 2014 compared with 2009. And I think we can all extrapolate from that data that as time goes on, that will only become worse and worse because the debt load is continuing to increase without an end in sight. These new grads have it really tough. I mean, you think about what they're going through. They just went through their college career and now they're about to enter the job market. And they're probably a little scared because they have this mountain of debt on their shoulders. And it's probably not going away anytime soon. It's very equivalent to, say, getting a house, except with a house, at least you can stay there, you can live there. With a PharmD degree, it's not the same. It's not like, oh, I can rely on this. You have to really work with your PharmD degree. You have to use it to obtain something measurable, because now it's not as easy as it once was to get a job, especially with 6 figures. So they enter the job market and they many times will take a job that may not be great or fantastic. And so they kind of hope for just the best. I had one student reach out to me who actually was able to work at a company where the majority of his job was doing MTM. It was great, except it came at one fatal flaw. He was paid a nurse's wage. You see, he was being paid based on performance, which is really something that pharmacists are not typically used to. And so maybe these new grads, they get a new job and they start working and they feel the weight of this decision. They start working in this job and it has its problems. Maybe it's okay. And you're just hoping that things don't get worse. But as you work something interesting happens. You feel the weight and the pressure of work, and you want to come home and just relax. You don't want to think about work. And you check out Amazon. You do a little bit of online shopping. And you first begin to justify it with emotions. You worked really hard this week. You know what? You deserve this little extra treat. And if it hasn't happened already through your college career, you begin to have lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is very simple. That as you have discretionary income, your purchases can take up all of that income and potentially more, being unable to use it for things like as investing or even just paying for normal day things like food. But I think we've all been there. You want to go to work, you're not feeling the greatest, you didn't have time to make coffee, you stop at Starbucks or your local coffee shop. I think we've all been there before, right? You go to work, you didn't have enough time to grab breakfast or grab your coffee, and so you want to stop at Starbucks or your local coffee shop. And soon that becomes the routine. Instead of having 2 cars, you want to get your third one just because, for fun. You don't need to shop for clothes at Walmart anymore. You get to go to Forever 21 or wherever it is that you spend your money, Banana Republic or some of the higher end stores, I suppose. It's an intentional or unintentional battle because sometimes you don't even realize what you're doing. You don't think through logically, hey, I don't have to buy these clothes at full price. I could go get something better, but you know what? I really want it. I really want to look good. I work hard for my money. I should be able to use it. I've gone on record before when I talk about money that it's a tough battle. I mean, I still struggle with this today. And what I find that has been so helpful in my own pharmacy journey was to decide that we were going to do our very best to live off of one paycheck per month, meaning that the other paycheck that we had went to other things like investing and paying off debt. But that hard line stopped us from pursuing lifestyle creep. That hard definition was able to give us the motivation we needed to make hard decisions with our money. And as time goes on for the pharmacist, they begin to accrue debt. They buy a house, they buy a car, maybe a newer car. They will begin to have a family. They buy more things. Lifestyle creep gets worse and worse. The added pressure at work becomes more and more, and they begin to get a sense of feeling of, I don't know how long I can do this for. And the workplace becomes troublesome. While yet on one side of the coin, the job provides this really stable and nice income, one where it feels like a golden opportunity. And yet on the other side of that coin, the workplace can become troublesome. It can become burdensome to the point where you feel burnt out, where you're dreading going into work and you feel the weight and the pressure of just, yuck, I don't want to go in. You can feel like you are going into work wearing handcuffs tied to the situation because if you leave that position, well, you can say goodbye to your lifestyle. You can say goodbye to the things that you've come to enjoy. We pharmacists have golden handcuffs that keep us in our jobs, and it keeps us trapped where we are. Too many times have I heard finances to be the excuse as to why a pharmacist won't go pursue a new career, or why a pharmacist won't try something new, like a new business venture. I can't do that. I don't have the money for that. I can't quit. I can't get into something new. I was speaking with a Canadian pharmacist who worked at a major retail chain. And we were talking about his career prospects, and we were trying to build that indispensable strategy for him. But one of the things that kept coming up over and over and over was how stressful his job was. Not only was he the pharmacist in charge in this facility, but he also had more responsibilities thrown at him all the time. And on top of this, he had some other private issues going on at the company that was just creating so much stress. I think you can fill in the blank easily. But his problem was it was causing him anxiety. It was causing him to be depressed. And he was actually seeking therapeutic help through counseling and medical services to try to work through this tough time. Whenever I work with someone who's like boxed in a corner, I always want to try to open up their mind to think about actually what options do you have? And I like to even think of the impossible. And I don't always want to say like, oh, I encourage everyone to do this, but I want at least to address it and have a logical conversation, because often we kind of emotionally play with our minds about what we can and can't do. And I ask the question, what if you quit tomorrow? What would happen? And I found out that this lucky pharmacist had saved well over 2 years of just expenditure income. So if he wanted to, he could quit and he would be fine for 2 years. I've spoken with people who have been unemployed for like 2 years. This isn't that kind of guy. He is a stand-em-up kind of guy. He's a fighter. And I was just kind of like, whoa, well, what's stopping you from quitting? And it was, again, all the excuses of having those golden handcuffs. Well, I won't have income, and then that income that I saved up will go away, and I can't have that. It's a prison that is so frustrating to see people trapped in. I want you to imagine a scenario with me here. Imagine for a moment that you are only making $80,000 a year. For some of you, that may seem spectacular, and others are like, whoa, well, that's like $50,000 less than what I make. But just bear with me, okay? Imagine that you love what you do. You wake up Monday morning and you're like, yes, I get to work today. I get to go in and solve some real problems for people. You are excited by the challenge of what your work holds for you. And not only are you challenged, but you're growing, you're achieving more and more and more. And the people that you work with are supportive and they're there for you. Even when you're at your worst, they know what it's like and they want to push you forward. And your work has real meaning. You feel like, wow, not only am I helping someone, but that's going to help more and more people. It's the butterfly effect every single day. And it's the work you want to do. Now, that's your job. That's your life. Soak it in for a moment. Really believe it. Now I want you to imagine that I'm going to offer you a new job. $130,000. Holy cats. It's a lot of money. I've increased your salary by like 50, 60%. And that's a huge jump, right? Think about all that, the things you could do with that money. You could go to Europe. You could buy a new boat. You could do all sorts of cool new things. But work isn't the same. You dread going into work. The people that you serve, you no longer really see them as people, but problems. You're emotionally exhausted on a daily basis. You're stressed out. You're like, the littlest things kind of just, they set you off. And you don't enjoy what you do. You feel like a cog in a machine, wondering what happened to your life that got you to this point. Now, let me ask you, knowing those things about the new job, the $130K option, would you choose it? If the immediate answer is no, well then you're free to pursue what you want to do. What science has shown us about happiness and money is that beyond the average income, there's not too much of a large increase in the amount of happiness versus the amount of money that a person makes, which everyone knows, and yet so few people make decisions based on that. I mean, including myself. I think there are so many times I catch myself wanting to chase after the dollar more than chase after the impact. If you would reject that job offer for the 130K option, you are choosing to live a better life. You're choosing that money is not your ultimate priority. And in turn, that means that you can go live probably your best life. But yet, when I talk with people about where they are, what their finances are, and how that's stopping them with their careers, well, there's no way that they would take a job for a 80K. And by no means do I ever suggest that someone jumps into a job where they're paid significantly less. But I think what this analogy shows people is just how much their finances control their everyday decisions. I've had the pleasure of being able to coach multiple pharmacists who make well over 150,000, 180,000. And the idea of escaping the environment that has created their situation, not only are they financially in prison, they are also in a burnout prison where, they don't want to bite the hand that feeds, and it's feeding them very well. They don't want to go from filet mignon to back to pork chops. One is certainly healthier than the other, and one has probably a longer term, greater outcome for a diet than the other. But yet, the filet mignon is just so good. It's rich. It makes you feel comforted in the moment. But that is short-term thinking, my friends. Do you believe that money is your prison? If you find yourself saying no to great opportunities where the finances behind it may not make sense, or you're not clear on what could come of it, or you feel like you may have to give up a few things, I want you to consider that analogy that I gave you. Would you at 80K take that 130K job? Would you go from that? Or would you stay in the job and try to figure out maybe how else could I increase my income? Rather than being miserable, could I go do something greater and bigger and better? If you feel trapped by your finances and you feel like you just can't escape the job that you're in because of those things, then I want you to check out my friends at Your Financial Pharmacists. Tim Baker, Tim Church, Tim Olbrich, the three Tims. They're all great guys, and they have an amazing podcast where they talk about these financial things. They talk about the different nuances that exist for pharmacists. And I know for a fact they help people seek financial freedom, which really is what this should be all about. The idea that we can do whatever we want financially, that we aren't held in handcuffs, tied to a certain role, and we can't change. Because once you get your finances in order, you feel like you can take control, take power of your situation, which means you can go pursue a new career if you wanted to. You could go do whatever it is you wanted. One of our coaches at the Happy PharmD just spoke with a pharmacist who had had enough of his job, and what he wants to do is work at Disney. Well, I can assure you that if his finances aren't in order, then that transition is going to be extremely difficult. But, just thinking out loud here with you, if it wasn't for financial freedom, I wouldn't be able to go on a 2.5 month long vacation this summer where I'm going to be traveling with my family across the country and hopefully exploring your town. I'd love to meet you one day if you live in the United States. If not, that's totally okay. Schedules, they don't always work out. But I want to encourage you, my friend. You can pursue financial freedom. You don't have to be held in golden handcuffs any longer. You can make tough decisions now so that you can really live the life that you are wanting. That sounds so cheesy, so corny, but yet it's so freeing. Because of financial freedom, I was able to quit my job and do this. It's a dream. I never imagined being able to do this kind of thing. I mean, it's very surreal. And I have even a hard time talking about it with people who aren't pharmacists, who don't know what I do. It feels surreal, but it is possible if you make good decisions now so that you can reap the benefits later. But look, you don't have to wait to get your finances in order to start an indispensable career. What I want you to do is check out my book, Indispensable. I have it out for digital for free for a limited time if you go to freerxbook.com. We're constantly giving away copies, as many as we can, especially for you new grads that may be listening and wondering, what in the heck do I do about my money stuff? We want to give these copies away to help you create that indispensable career now so that you don't have to worry later about the financial prison that you have built around yourself. Thank you for listening to this episode. This first season of this podcast has been so much fun to produce and make, and I really appreciate it if you would subscribe, if you would leave a rating. I know I don't always ask for those, but they really help us out for our podcast, so I so would appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.